There are some who feel like that, you know, the conditions are such that they can attack us there. My answer is bring them on.
Despite all the bad feeling that exists, that the active duty military continues to soldier on, continues to do what they're told, continues to do the right thing, and the troops, which are still, in my judgment, the very best in the world, they deserve all of the support that they can get from us, but I don't think they're getting the support from the administration that they deserve.
Could you give us some ideas to the magnitude of the Army's force requirement for an occupation of Iraq?
Something on the order of several 100,000 soldiers are probably, you know, a figure that would be required.
During the war, I was embedded in the NewsHour with Jim Lehrer, and we talked about the number of times about the troop levels, as did other people who were talking about the war and saying, well, it doesn't look like we have enough. And it was really painful. The vice president made a speech and called us traitors because we had raised that question of not having enough troops. And I mean, that angered me seriously. Because he was saying to people who knew that you were traitor for having the right answer. There's something wrong with that.
These particular policymakers have no military experience as a group. There are very few that have even served in the military, and very few, in fact, none I know that have ever seen combat. It's interesting to note where the opposition, the kind of senior level concerns being expressed about our neoconservative foreign policy come from. And they come from retired generals like Anthony Zinni, like Brent Scowcroft, who have actually seen combat, and they look at what the neoconservatives are doing and they see it as a danger to our soldiers and a danger to our system.
The set piece show that the congressmen and the Wolfowitz and Pearl and Rumsfeld, when they come over there, the pretty painted cut grass, flowing water, the two happy Iraqis they find to put in front of him, that's not the reality of it. That's not what soldiers see every day. And that's not what's killing soldiers right now.
My son was killed by an RPG. He was driving a Humvee, and they were hit from the left. And it was violent. When I saw the Mission Accomplished banner, my first thought was, in terms of Bush personally, I thought, what arrogance. So much of the money, so much of the resources is going towards this technological war that they have forgotten, quote, the boots on the ground. And the people that Bush and Rumsfeld profess to care for, it's all part of the overall administration of lives.
I'm made uncomfortable by the president landing on an aircraft carrier in a Navy aircraft at that juncture in the war, because the war wasn't over by any manner of means. I think it was spin. I think it was badly advised, and I think it's too bad that it was done.
We hear daily from our members who hear from their loved ones about conditions over there, including everything from insufficient food and water to the lack of equipment, the Kevlar vests with the ceramic plates, the Humvees that don't have protective doors. We hear from our families about troops that are being deployed who have both physical and or mental health conditions and are being judged fit for duty because this war needs more than certainly the 45,000 troops that Rumsfeld and Wolfowitz and others were saying we could fight this techno war with. We hear about the horrors of patrolling streets, and you see some motion and you train your gun on it and you don't know whether it's a sniper or a little kid on a roof just going to get some air.
They were told at the highest levels of the Pentagon that the Iraqi people would welcome us and that the Iraqi combat units would run away, which they did. But what they didn't think of, what they did in a very amateurish fashion, was by not having a follow-up plan or not realizing what would be needed afterwards. So even though they won the battles cheaply by using only a few soldiers, then these soldiers quickly became overextended as they tried to provide security for the whole country.
Soldiers they work in an environment that needs to have a certain logical structure. It has to have a certain moral structure. That's what makes war doable by armies. There is always, our side is right. George Bush has put our soldiers in a situation where many of them are questioning which side is right.
For the individual soldier, I think that he may find himself spending more time deployed, more time separated from his family, living with more uncertainty about when he's going to be deployed and when he's going to go home. Family satisfaction with the military is probably the single major determinant of retention and reenlistment. To the extent that families don't like the sacrifices they're being asked to make, the military members of those families are likely to vote with their feet. And I am expecting that there will be significant retention problems in the services. There are already recruiting problems.
The way he's using the reserve and guards is, you know, it's another thing. These people have families and jobs and so on. They're not like 18 and 19-year-olds, you know, so it's causing a lot of damage, more than meets the eye. President Bush is ruining the Guard by abusing it in this fashion. Other people seeing what's occurring will just not join up. Beyond that, he's also ruining our regular combat troops by putting them in jobs that they weren't trained for and putting them in jobs that just makes them targets.
When you put volunteer soldiers in situations where they're not trained to do it, where what they see with their own eyes and what they hear with their ears is totally inconsistent with what their government is telling them, and they're volunteers, what you find is many people decide this is not what I signed up for.
Knowing that the military, unlike any of the rest of us in the society, is willing to risk death for decisions the political leadership makes, I think the political leadership has special obligations not to betray that trust of the military, to make sure they are adequately respected, adequately funded, adequately honored, that there's nothing that can be done for them that is negligently or without careful thought, you know, left undone. So I think there is that burden of trust, and that's why there has been as much dissent as there's been in the military over the last year. The sense that their trust has been abused.
There's no plans for once they got over there or once they got back as like pay for medical care. They don't have anywhere to put all these soldiers that are being injured. And there's a lot of guys that came back, stopped getting paid. What are they supposed to do with them? You're not getting paid. We didn't get paid for 2 months. Why wasn't that taken care of, planned for?
We had to actually get Congress involved for like the 4th time since my deployment to get things fixed for myself and other soldiers. It was a big mess.
What the American soldiers haven't had is the kind of clarity that they deserve when they are being asked to commit the ultimate sacrifice. And the clarity comes from a political leadership that is straight with them. You know, it wasn't straight about the WMD. It wasn't straight about how things were going to be. It's not straight about how things are there now. There's too much spin going on.
We knew, despite what was in the papers, that we were told protect the oil fields first and not the people. We knew that the Iraqi people had been promised things that we couldn't deliver to them, and we knew that the Iraqis were mad because of that. I'm
made very uncomfortable by people that talk about military operations as if they were board games, when in fact we're talking about the lives of individual people. You can't be half a commander-in-chief. Go ride on the aircraft carriers, go out and exhort the troops, have your picture taking, speaking to the reserves and the National Guards. But you have to do the other half of it, just like a good commander does, when you grieve with your troops and you go to bury them as well.